Hello everyone, it's Mike Levin. Wednesday, April 27th, around 9:10 a.m. on my way into work, walking through the flower district. You'll see a lot of it behind me as I go now. I wanted to make sure I got one of these videos in while everything was in full bloom. So anyway, today I have an interesting project of a nature that's becoming more and more popular in my business of search engine optimization, which is working the main and secondary navigational items of a site. The reason this has become so important is because the nature of the search engine optimization business has changed of recent years, starting in 2008 when Eric Schmidt stood up in front of a room full of magazine publishers and said, we're going to clean up the cesspool of the internet, and Google proceeded to have a series of initiatives roll out, starting with Vince, which was a algorithm or process update that gave well-known established brands safe haven while all these other changes kicked into play, starting with Panda, which sort of artificially subdued the influence of content light sites, the main offender on the internet. Sites that spun out hundreds and thousands or millions of pages, each page a little bit better optimized for some particular target keyword, usually a long tail keyword off the beaten track, 3 or 4 words. And it was a highly effective technique. People could essentially cast the giant trolling nets out into the ocean of the internet and get back searchers. And the easiest way to make money on this technique was the AdSense network, advertising from Google by their AdSense customers buying AdWords. So whenever you bought AdWords, you had the option of having your ads run on AdSense. And those were low quality sites in great part. And so Panda cleaned those up, and soon on its heels came the Penguin algorithm tweaks or process updates. The language is a little, ambiguous because there's so many ways to think about it. Is it really an algorithm tweak? Not really. It's a change to the process. For those old enough to remember CB radios, what this amounts to is a squelch dial on a CB radio, where Google can slightly adjust the dial and vast swaths of the internet go dark as far as search results are concerned. And the trick by Google is to do this by small degree over a long period of time, so that eventually only quality stuff remains, and in the process Google doesn't throw out the babies with the bathwater. So the main signals of content for Google to serve in search results, A, the content itself, and B, the links between the content, were the two things under attack, first by Panda, then by Penguin. So two really big signals are being diminished in their impact and influence. And what remains has all the more impact and influence. And what remains above everything else is how short click paths are to your content pages. And you'd also say how numerous those short click paths are as well, because one link from a home page to a piece of content is one thing, but then a link from navigation to a piece of content cuts across your entire site, providing hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of short click path links. Because if you can imagine, no matter what point of entry someone has to your site, that piece of content is one click away if it's on primary or secondary navigation. And I love to correct people's presumptions about primary and secondary navigation with the idea that what's visible is primary and then the drop down menus or the accordion options are secondary. Not true. If the secondary options are in view source, if you can select view source from a web browser and you can see those secondary nav items right there, they're primary nav, especially if it cuts across the entire site. You don't really have secondary nav until those navigational links are limited to a section of the site. Oftentimes it's tertiary navigation, which functionally in, you know, the divvying out of authority and importance and link juice through a site, tertiary nav plays the role of secondary. So, a large project that people are doing in the world of SEO these days is reevaluating primary, secondary, tertiary navigation, the main way all your pages are linked together in the site, with the idea that there's only a limited amount of real estate on each of those click depth levels. What is that real estate? We'll say you had 10 primary nav items, and then each of those primary nav items had a drop-down menu of 10 more items. That's 10 times 10. So you have essentially 100 links cutting across every page of your site that establishes a real estate that is more important than anything else in your site. And all your competitive terms, not long tail, but your competitive shorter terms that align probably to product categories and high-level subject matter, the groupings, topic categories. Again, the terminology is quite diverse, but the results of your keyword research, the best numbers and the lowest competition items should align to those 100 spots. And then that logarithmic progression continues. Each secondary nav item probably links to at least 10 tertiary nav items. So that's 1,000 more pages. And you can start to put your most important articles, things that have to be pinned up, things where you know there's a lot of search traffic, even long tail search traffic aligned to. You try and bring those up to be permanently found by, let's count clicks. Homepage is, let's call that 0. You set a crawler going on the homepage. Everything on primary or secondary navigation is a click depth of 1, and you're going to get back a number from 50 to 200 pages that are just one click off your homepage. It's one of the most insightful things you can do on your site. Get a list of all the links, I guess on-site and off-site, that are just one click off your homepage. You can do that in Screaming Frog on the paid version by setting depth, I believe, to just 1. A lot of people don't do this exercise because it requires the paid version of Screaming Frog. But there's plenty of other tools to do this. But then repeat that crawl, increasing the click depth to 2, and watch that number of 100 go up to 1,000. If it goes up to 10,000, you're pancaking the site out too quickly. It's going too many links too fast. The pages that are linked from your homepage in turn have too many links on them. And that leads to a sort of site pruning, so that by the time you get to that third level, remember 1 is 10, 2 is 100, although 2 gets wrapped up to 1 to bring it to 100 by your first click. So really, its click depth of 1 is 100. Click depth of 2 should yield something between, I don't know, 1,000 and 5,000. If it's much more than that, you're pancaking the site out very flat, and your individual pages are going to lose a lot of their search effectiveness. So there's a certain pruning that has to be done in the site. A lot of that pruning can be done in the nav elements itself, or you can do it on a page-by-page basis, and kind of clean up all the links throughout the site, which is a much larger task. So of course the hope is that any pancaking issues you have are in the nav elements and are template issues and can be cleaned up systemically rather than hunt and peck manually. Sure, helps by tools, but nonetheless, pruning can be hard to do. So anyway, my project today has a lot to do with primary, secondary nav, those top level decisions that sort of starts to establish that pyramid hierarchy of your site. So anyway, that's all I have to say this morning. Thanks for joining me. Hope to talk to you soon, and don't forget to subscribe.